So now we're playing the game. It's your turn. You have a hand of 3 cards. Each turn you have 4 action points that you can spend to either acquire new rocks, to stack the rocks that you have on your tower, or throw your rocks at another player's tower. So on this turn, I'm going to choose to buy some rocks from the quarry. So again, I have 4 action points. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 2 action points to buy this medium flat rock. The medium flat rock has a cost of 2, an attack value of 2, and a defense value of 3. So when I buy it, I spend 2 of my 4 action points. I take that and I put it into my discard pile next to my deck. As I mentioned before, the quarry always has 5 cards face up, so I'm going to flip over another card from the quarry. Here we have the catapult. I'm going to spend 2 more points this turn to buy another rock. I'm going to buy, this time instead, the medium round rock. This one has a cost of 2, an attack value of 3, and a defense of 2. Again, I spend 2 action points on this rock. I take it and I put it into my quarry discard pile. I flip over another card to keep the quarry selection at 5 at all times. Now I've spent all 4 of my action points. I didn't use any of the cards in my hand, but that's fine. At the end of your turn, what you do is you take your hand, you discard it into your discard pile. You then take your discard pile and shuffle it in with your deck. After you're done shuffling the deck, you can then draw back up to 3 cards. You don't have to draw 3, but you can draw up to 3 cards. And once you're done drawing your hand for your next turn, you can say go, and the next player gets to go. So now I'm going to show you how to stack rocks during your turn. So I'm on my second turn now. I have 4 action points to spend this turn. I look at my hand of 3 cards right now. I have a big flat rock, cost of 3, attack of 3, and defense of 5. A small round rock with a cost of 1, attack of 2, defense of 1. And a small flat rock with a cost of 1, attack of 1, and defense of 2. So what I can do is I can spend action points to pay the cost value of the rock to stack them on my tower. So I'm going to start by paying 1 to place this small round rock on the tower. And what you'll notice is that the picture of the rock corresponds to the number on the side, such that my tower is currently a total height of 1. Now if I want to play a second rock, I can take this big flat rock, which cost me 3, and I have 3 action points left, spend those 3 action points, and place it on top such that all the flavor text in the card name is covered. So now you see the big flat rock covers 3 spaces on my scoring track. So it takes me from 1 to 4 in terms of height. The last thing I want to note is that, well, 2 things, is that as you move up to taller and taller tower heights, you get some bonuses as you reach certain levels. So for example, in the future, if I was to play a rock here, this would get me up to level 5, which allows me to draw 1 additional card at the end of my turn. If I was to stack more rocks and get up to a height level of 9, then I would have 1 additional action point to spend each turn. Lastly, if I was to get up to a level of 12, I'm allowed to hold 1 additional card from my hand as opposed to discarding it each turn. So I would, rather than discard my whole hand, I'd be able to keep 1 of those and then still draw back all the cards I would draw otherwise. The last thing I want to note here is that if you look closely on the scoring track, there's actually 3 colored regions. The first region goes 1 through 7, and in this region you can play any size rock you like. So you can play a small rock, you can play a medium rock, you can play a large rock, a big rock. However, above a height of 7, you cannot start a big rock. So for example, if my tower was already 6 tall, I could place a big flat rock here because it touches the 7 region, but I could not start a big flat rock in 8 or above. The same is true at 12. At 12, above 12, you cannot start medium-sized rocks. So I could play a medium rock on 12 and have it touch 13, but I could not play one on 13 and have it extend to 14. So that's how you place your rocks. The items I want to talk about is the attacking mechanism. So again, each turn you can spend your action points either to acquire new rocks from the quarry, to stack the rocks that you have in your hand, or to throw at another player. So what you see here is that I already have a very tall tower, a tower with a total height of 9. I've been playing this game for a couple of turns now. And my opponent, sitting to my left, decides that during his turn he wants to attack me. So he's selected to throw the medium round rock at me. That cost him 2 action points. So he took that medium round rock from his hand, paid 2 action points, and has chosen to throw this at my tower. He gets to choose where on the tower he would like to attack. So he has a couple of choices he can make. He can attack the tower high or low. If he attacks low, it could potentially be a lot more damaging for me because a lot more of my rocks will get lost, essentially. However, if he chooses to attack low, it's also more difficult for him to topple the tower. And I'll show you how that works in a moment. So in this case, my opponent has chosen to attack me right here, this medium round rock that's at 7 and 8. So the way that this works is that he's declared the rock he wants to throw, he declared where he wants to attack. Lastly, he gets to declare how many cards he'd like to flip over for his attack draw. So you can flip over up to 2 cards for your attack draw, but you don't have to flip over 2. You can always do 1 or 0. Once he declares how many cards he's going to flip over for his attack draw, as a defender, I'll declare how many cards I want to flip as my defense draw. So again, you can flip up to 2 cards for a defense draw, but you don't have to. So he says he's going to flip 2 cards for his attack draw. I've chosen to flip 2 cards as my defense draw. So he flips over 2 cards from his deck, a big round rock and a small flat rock. And I flip over 2 cards from my deck, a small round rock and a medium flat rock. So his total attack value is equal to the attack value of the rock he threw, which is 3 for a medium round rock, plus the attack value of both the cards he flipped over. So it's 5 for the big round rock and 1 for the small flat rock. So his total of attack value is 3 plus 5 plus 1 for a total of 9. Now he targeted this rock between 7 and 8, this medium round rock. My total defense value is equal to the rock that's being targeted plus all the rocks stacked above it. So the defense here is 2, and the defense of the rock above it is also 2 for a total of 4. I then take that and I add the defense value of the 2 rocks I flipped over as part of my defense draw. So I had a 3 and a 1. So I add the 3 and the 1 to the 4 that I already have for a total of 8. So the attacker has an attack value of 9, defender has a defense value of 8. In this case, it goes to the attacker. So a tie goes to the attacker, and if the attacker is higher, it also goes to the attacker. So he was successful in his attack. What happens is, in a successful attack, the rock that was thrown and the rock that was hit both get destroyed. So both of these will go into the discard pile, which is beside the quarry. So they both get obliterated, blasted to a lot of small pieces. Any rock stacked above the rock that was destroyed will go to my discard pile, and then the rocks that I flipped over for defense draw also go to my discard pile, and the rocks that he flipped over for his defense draw will go to his discard pile as well. So, however, if he was unsuccessful in his attack, what would have happened is that, again, our defense draw and our attack draw cards still go to our discard piles, but if he was unsuccessful, the rock that he threw at me would have basically missed my tower, would have landed right next to me, and would have became part of my collection. So I would then take that rock that he threw at me, and I would have put that in my discard pile as well. So it's a pretty strong disincentive to attack someone if you don't think you'll be successful, because you're basically giving them one of the rocks from your collection. One thing I want to note, similar to the stacking limitations, there are the same limitations that apply when you throw rocks. So, for example, if he was throwing a big round rock, he could not target a rock that started at 8 or above. And if he was throwing a medium-sized rock, he could not target a rock that started at 13 or above. So the same height restrictions apply for stacking as they do for throwing rocks. So then his turn is over. Well, he can spend the rest of his action points. Then his turn ends. He then discards his hand, shuffles them back into his deck, and draws his new hand. One important thing to note here is that it's important to keep cards in your deck even when it's not your turn, because if he was to attack me again, I would be able to flip over more cards from my deck to defend myself. But if a third attack came either from that player or another player playing the game, then I would be unable to flip over cards from my defense draw. And that's why it's important that you don't always have to flip over 2 cards. You can flip over 1 or none if you'd rather save the cards for a later attack. So that's how the attack mechanism works in Stack and Attack.